another episode of our podcast, OfferX Beyond Offers. So, today we gonna dig in a bit behind the scenes, BTS as we call it, of what exactly happens after a candidate accepts the offer. So, I'm Alicia, the branding and communication lead at OfferX, and I'm your host for today. And we have with us today a very special guest, Sangram, a seasoned professional, 19 years of experience, currently senior manager, talent acquisition, handling India and Asia Pacific at Skillsoft, if I'm right, Sangram?
Yeah, that is right.
Okay, but this introduction won't sum it up all. I would want Sangram to summarize his experience, his long journey of 19 years, and share with our viewers. Hello to all our viewers too.
Well, thanks, Alicia. Right, so I started off my career as a salesperson. Right, so my father was a sales guy. He was a legendary sales guy. Right, and I'd say I got a little bit from him, and I do fairly good at sales.
Okay.
So that's the first thing that I took up. And initial 2-3 years into sales, I attended a couple of interviews, and I didn't get treated well, and I saw a lot of candidates not being treated well. Right, for example, there was a company where I went in the morning at about 8:30, and I walked out of the office at about 10:30 in the night with an offer letter, of course. But then I was not even asked for water, tea. I was hungry. It was like a Ramadan day for me, fasting day for me, right? The whole day. That's when I thought, and that around the same time I got another offer from my agency, a recruiting agency as such. And they offered me a recruiter's job. And I said, hey, this is a good thing, right? Perhaps rather than cribbing from the outside, I have an opportunity to get into the industry and try to clean it from the inside, or try to do something from my side about something that I felt really strongly about that day. And that's how I took up recruiting.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, on that note, let's begin our first segment, and our first segment is called as Ghost from the Past. So we are not talking about real horror stories here, but we will talk about some stories of ghosting from your experience. So should we start, Sangram?
Sure.
Okay. So, Sangram, during your career in talent acquisition, I'm sure you have faced situations where a candidate backed out last minute, maybe for a critical role, where it really impacted the business, and you just got to know about it the very last minute when you were expecting to hand him over the offer letter. So, in such situations, how have you tackled it, and what was the lesson learned, and just sum it up for us. How was the ghosting experience for you?
Well, every talent acquisition person, keeps coming across ghosting situations, right? In some cases a lot, in some cases less, right? About a decade ago, I was a part of a recruitment agency, and I was hiring for a customer, a IT services company, who was eventually hiring it for an end customer, the project that they were delivering for. And we had made an offer to a very critical, very niche resource, a technical lead or an architect level, engineer. And this guy was supposed to join about a week later, about 10 days left to join. And this guy sent us a message that, hey, I won't be able to join you guys. And the customer and the customer's customer. These guys were really panicked because they really needed this resource to start off to meet the deliverables by a certain point. And instead of panicking, we said there's nothing much you can do about it, right? All you can do is find a backup. So I got my team together, right? I organized a lunch in office on a weekend. I got my team to work on a weekend, Saturday, Sunday, almost 10 hours a day, right? We went through multiple candidates. We did a lot of interviews. Hiring managers are also helpful, right? These guys said, I will make time as long as we are able to get candidates. So we started headhunting, kissing a lot of frogs before we found the prince, who was immediate joiner. We found this guy from Vizag, and this is a decade ago, so Zoom interviews and WebEx interviews were not a norm. So we had to change, right? Desperate times call for desperate measures. So we told the client and we told the hiring managers, well, that here's how you'll have to do it, right? You won't find immediate joiner meeting your skill requirement in your city who can come and meet you. So let's do it. So we did that. I personally went. I had an office there in Vizag. So I went to Vizag, met up with the candidate there, got the candidate along with me, and I handed the resource over to this customer. right? And this is an actual story that happened a decade ago. That customer is somebody that I'm still in touch with,
Okay.
right? In case of any hiring challenges, we still talk, right? I take opinions from these guys, and they take opinions from me. So yeah, that's what happened, and we saved the day. And the end customer was really happy that we were able to find somebody on time, and that was one of the first hires that I made for that customer, and me handing over the resource personally in the office at 9:30 a.m. on a Monday. That was really appreciated well by the customer. In fact, I went on to hire way too many candidates for these guys eventually.
Okay.
And
So, this is the first time I'm hearing that a recruiter would go to another city. I have always heard of stories where the candidate comes to the company, but this Sangram has just set another level where he's traveling to another city to get the candidate and get him along with him back to the company and handing him over the offer letter. That's how traumatized you were with the first experience.
No.
Did that happen?
Well, I like traveling, so it wasn't really
Okay.
painful. But then, like I said, desperate times call for desperate measures, right?
Yeah, but-
And once bitten, twice shy, so I didn't want to take a chance with the second resource.
Yeah. So it did come, some parts of it did come from the fact that, the first time somebody ghosted, so you had to take the measures. Yeah. So,
Although people had ghosted on me many a time before as well, but this was a separate and a specific situation, and more impactful situation because there was a lot of money riding on it.
okay. So that was a very insightful segment, I must say. And this story I'll remember for a very long time where you traveled. Although you had a love for traveling, but I would still remember this. So let's switch to the next segment. It's a bit more fun. And I'll explain you the rules as we go. So it's called traffic stop. It's simple. We know the traffic rules, right? The red, amber, and green. So I don't want you to answer in details or answer anything for me. If you want to, you can just cover it up with lights. Okay, let's go. Is candidate ghosting entirely the candidate's fault?
Red.
Okay. Should recruiters be more transparent about offer details upfront?
Of course, green.
Okay. Are hiring managers equally responsible for dropouts?
Yeah.
No, you had to answer with colors.
Right.
Do you think using OfferX as a platform can eliminate candidate ghosting?
Amber to green.
Okay. Would features like offer punching that certain platforms like OfferX offer, where they can track candidates' activity after accepting offer, would help recruiters make better hiring decisions?
Amber to green again.
Okay. Well played, Sangram. That was fun. Let's move to the next round. It's called Pick and Speak. As you see, I have some options in my hand, and I'm going to give them to Sangram. Whatever chit that comes to his hand will have some numbers, and I have some secret topics behind those numbers. So whatever number comes and gets dropped on your lap, you have to share your experience and speak about it. It's easy, right? Okay, so pick two, any two. Okay. So we are going with number 2 and number 4, and I'll just give you the topics. Let's start with the first one. The number 2 topic he picked for today is best hiring advice you have ever received. Over to you.
Well, I've been fortunate, Alicia, to work with a lot of great managers, right? And I believe that there is nothing new under the sun, right? Everything is been there and done it. So instead of trying to reinvent the wheel, you can pick good things from everybody that you meet and work with, and try to add your own flavor to it and make something new out of it, right? So one of the managers that I worked with once told me, right, that recruiting is not a transactional activity, right? It's a relationship building exercise. And if you invest and if you look at this and if you take a relationship building approach, you'll be more successful hiring. And that's what I started doing, right? Talking to candidates beyond just, tell me about yourself or why are you leaving the company, right? You go a step ahead, right? I ask people, of course, if they don't mind, about their family. I want to know about their family. What do they do? What are their aspirations, right? What is it that they're expecting from the organization? I try to see how we can hire the right people for the right managers. Right, because you need to find that perfect symbiotic relationship, right, between a hiring manager and the associates. And I've been fortunate enough that the hiring managers that I've worked with, they have really given that value to the HR team. They've really considered HR opinions. A lot of times I've seen a lot of hiring managers also do this, right? A lot of companies perhaps might do that or experience this, where HR says, hey, you know what, I have certain concerns with this candidate. I don't think you may want to hire this guy. I'll get you somebody else. But hiring managers become, no, you know what, I want to hire this guy. But I've been fortunate to work with a lot of great clients, a lot of great hiring managers who have taken HR advice very seriously, and that has really helped over a period of time.
Okay. Looks like a very good advice to me too personally. I think to all the viewers who really are watching this podcast, it's not just about candidate ghosting, because we go both the sides and we talk about the recruiters as well. So this advice, I think just going as far as possible or making things happen, having the personal touch, and just not exactly moving mountains, but having that connection really does matter. So it makes or breaks things. Okay, going to the next number that you picked, I have another topic for Sangram. What's one of the red flags you always watch for in post-offer engagement?
Right. There are a lot of factors that one can consider, right? However, from a behavior perspective, for a candidate, if the candidate is not answering, see, there's a certain behavior pre-interview, during the interview process, during the offer process, and post-offer, right? The amount of enthusiasm that a candidate is exhibiting during the interview process while receiving the offer, if there isn't an increment in the enthusiasm post-offer, that's a sign to look out for. If the person is really, if the person's behavior is a little slightly more reclusive as compared to how he or she was behaving during the interview process, that really matters. So if somebody is not behaving the same way they did 2 weeks ago, there's something wrong.
Okay.
Right? If the person is to respond to your WhatsApp in an hour before and is now responding after a day, that's a sign to look out for.
Okay.
Communication. So if there is a difference, if there's a dip in the communication enthusiasm, then I think that's one factor for you to kind of, get your antennas on that, hey, something could be wrong. So you could do something about that.
Right. You are definitely a people person, I must say. You have just gotten that skill to identify anything like in a person's behavior, which is a must have in a recruiter, I guess. I
Yes,
think
I'll give you an example as well, right? Say everybody's gone to car showrooms and take test drives, right? You have an enthusiasm when you're talking to the sales guy. You take the car, you go for a test drive and come back. And if, when the sales guy follows up with you, if you're not really taking that person's call or responding to that person's message, the sales guy gets a hint that, hey, perhaps this guy is not as interested. He's perhaps taking more test drives outside. Right? It's the same thing here.
Right.
I don't think it's way too different. Of course, the nuances are different, but more or less the fundamentals don't change.
Right. The inference that you have given to the situation, I think pretty much sums it up. Like it, and you think it's two ways. Like maybe the candidate was very interested, and after coming in, he did feel like, okay, no. Or maybe he's like he's window shopping elsewhere as well, and that's why his behavior is changing. The more he's looking outside, that can also happen.
That can happen. See, it's up to the talent acquisition people, right? So during the final discussion, final round of interviews, typically the HR discussion, right? A lot of times people don't tend to ask what are the other offers the person has or other interviews the person has been to. Now, technically, I have this philosophy, right? If you've gone to some place, say for example, okay, let's use the car example, right? You go to the car showroom, you take a test drive. If you're not calling, sales guy can do this, right? If he or she, the sales guy, is not getting a call from that prospect in 3 days, likely that the customer has moved on to some other car, right? Same thing happens even in in recruiting, right? Say if you go for an interview, if a company really wants to hire you, you will get a call back in 3 to 4 days. If you don't get a call in 3 days, might be you might want to think that, hey, perhaps the interview might not have worked out. So what we do is, I believe we should ask candidates, open them up first, right? You can't just be an HR, you can't just do a very transactional interview, right? It has to be a discussion and not an interview. And open them up to share with you how many interviews have they taken in the last 3 weeks, right? If they've taken 5, 4, whatever number of interviews, when was the last interview that you've taken?
Okay.
If they said it's been a week ago, what happened after that? I didn't hear back. More or less, that interview is gone. The candidate is not getting the offer. So your worry about a competitive offer is gone out of the window, right? If they've not called him or her in a week, more likely that the candidate has not made it through the interview. Now, if they have offers as well, right? If you open them up, if you make them comfortable enough, right, they will share the name of the company that they have an offer with. You want to know everything about that offer that the person has. To start with the company's name. Candidates may or may not be really, comfortable telling you the name, but you don't really have to know. You can ask different questions. So what I do is, if somebody is not comfortable, giving me the company's name where they have an offer from, I say, what kind of company is it? Is it a product or a services company? Is it an Indian company or an American or a Western company? Is the headcount like 5,000 above, 5,000 and below? Or tier 1 or tier 2 or tier 3? So that kind of gives you a lot of information, and you can circle it on certain kind of customers. Say, for example, the candidate says, hey, it's a Indian services giant. It's a tier 1 company, right? And they have close to about, say, 10,000 employees in India. You can round it off to some services companies in that range. So I don't want to take names, but you get the message.
Yeah. Do you think sometimes while you ask such questions, it might just get their guards high and they do not want to answer, or it's beyond their comfort level?
Yes, of course. And you have to time those questions really well. You can't ask them in the first half of the discussion.
Okay.
Right? Make them comfortable. Towards the end, once a person is comfortable, that is when you want to sneak in these questions.
Okay,
Sorry.
Sorry.
People did, sometimes when people say, do I have to share the name? I said, don't worry, don't share it. Even if you do, I'm not going to call the HR there and say, don't hire this guy. And even if I did make that call in a ridiculous situation, why is the HR going to listen to me?
Yeah, right.
Why will they take my words over their own interview process? And when I've said things like these to candidates have laughed about it and said, actually, that makes sense. There's no harm in me sharing the name of the company.
Yeah, absolutely. It also depends on how it's your personal approach on how you are handling these candidates, right?
Yes. Everybody is different. I'll give an example. There's a candidate I was interviewing yesterday, and the guy is from a premium B school, about a few years of experience. We were hiring him for a senior finance analyst kind of a role, and I logged in to the Teams call. It was a virtual interview, and the guy was suited up with a tie, right? Typical B school behavior, which is very good, which is amazing. I mean, the kind of feedbacks the previous hiring managers had given, every feedback started with, the guy was extremely presentable. The guy invested in the interview. So the moment I saw this guy with a blazer on, and I said, hey, just hold on. Do you mind if I take 5 minutes and join back? He said, Sangram, of course, it's okay. So I just logged out of the meeting. I went down to my car because I always carry a blazer. I put on the blazer and I came back. I said, of course, you want to compliment them, right? That broke the ice to such level that this guy started telling me a lot of things. I got to know a lot of things about this guy.
Well,
so there is no specific way how you can get people to open up, get candidates to open up, right? Anything could work. This was a dynamic, thought that, okay, what? This guy's wearing a blazer, why not I compliment him by showing up in the same attire? So yeah.
okay.
Different people, different shenanigans.
Sangram, after we have so far around 3 segments so far, and in this podcast, I think after every segment, obviously, I'm getting to know you better as a person, and even as a recruiter. I think the kind of experiences you have, I'm sure 19 years of long experience brings a lot on table. You add a lot of value, but what I like the most about him, first of all, I would want to say that I'm loving it that he's our first guest. I think there could not have been a better guest on the very first episode who has such depth to the entire behavioral pattern of human being. And that is the first question I asked you: what drives you to this entire role of HR, hiring, recruitment? And I think I've never heard better answers, or somebody who has put it in a more better way than you have right now. Like, every segment is more of a takeaway for me than I think it is for anyone. Of course, for our viewers too. I can like really remember the stories now. The way you travel to Vizag, the way you have suited up for another candidate who was suited up as well on the other side of this camera. So we come to the end of the segment. Can we wrap up now?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So amazing test drive we had with Sangram, with a lot of cars being personified during the entire session. And we have to wrap this podcast here today, and see you soon for more episodes. Stay tuned for all of our episodes for more insightful conversation that's gonna keep coming. Bear with me. I'll be your host for the entire season, and it was amazing having this. Amazing having Sangram on set today. Thank you.